Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Hampstead School Board public hearing on January 12th, 2021. Before we begin, I'm going to read our COVID statement. As chair of the Hampstead School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen to this meeting by dialing the following phone number, 888-475-4499 or 877-853-5257. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom telephonetically. Instructions have also been provided on the district website at hampsteadschools.net. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please email hmstechnology@hampsteadschools.net. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. Melissa, will you please call attendance?
Yes. Megan Malcolm?
I'm here alone in the room as well as the house.
Caitlin Parnell?
Here, I'm alone in the room. There are other people in my house.
David Smith?
Yeah, I'm here in the room alone, and there's others in the house.
Jim Sweeney?
Here, alone in the room, others in the house.
Karen Yusenka?
I'm here alone in my home office, and there are others in the house.
Executive Consultant, Dr. Earl Metzler?
Present in my home office, and there are other members of my family in the house.
And Executive Director, Michael Flynn?
Present, and there are alone in the room and other members in my house.
And CFO and Business Administrator, Jeff Dowd?
Present, alone in my home office, there are others in the household.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, we are going to get right into the public hearing. Give me one moment, please. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, can I just have someone confirm for me real quick that you can see my screen?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Okay, as mentioned before, this is the Hampstead School District public hearing on the bond, as well as the public hearing on the proposed 2021-2022 budget and a preview of the 2021 warrant. We will have several items this evening that we will be going through. Part 1 is introduction to the district and the board. Part 2 is presentation of the warrant. Part 3 is public hearing on the bond. Part 4 is public hearing on the budget. Part 5 is a proposed union contract. And Part 6 is any additional warrant articles. Normally, you would be sitting in middle school as we presented this, and I'd be talking about people who are at the head table. So our virtual head table this evening, we have our 5 school board members, myself, Caitlin Parnell, Vice Chair Karen Yusenka, Jim Sweeney, David Smith, and Megan Malcolm. Additionally, we have our executive consultant, Dr. Earl Metzler. We have our executive director, Michael Flynn, our CFO, business administrator for SAU 55, Mr. Jeff Dowd, and additionally, we have our school board clerk, Melissa Post. Okay, quickly, our district profile. The Hampstead School District is located in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and includes 2 schools, Hampstead Central School and Hampstead Middle School. Currently, there are 809 students in grades pre-K through 8th grade. There are 433 students in grades 9 through 12 who are tuitioned to Pinkerton Academy in Derry. Pinkerton Academy is a public academy and the designated school of record for high school students in Hampstead. The mission statement of the Hampstead School District is to provide challenging education experiences that prepare all students to succeed to their individual potential in a changing world. Our school board goals for 2020-21, we focused on facility improvements, appreciation of diversity and inclusivity, a strategic plan, our budget, our COVID-19 response, which obviously took precedent for much of the year, and our SAU reorganization, which was another main goal of this year. Okay, moving on, we are going to the presentation of the warrant. This is our 2021 school district warrant as it currently stands. To the inhabitants of the school district of the town of Hampstead, New Hampshire, qualified to vote. Excuse me, I'm having a issue. Okay, sorry. Qualified to vote in district affairs. First session of the annual meeting deliberative. You are hereby notified to meet at the Hampstead Middle School, 28 School Street, Hampstead, New Hampshire, on Tuesday, the 2nd day of February, 2021 at 7 p.m. This session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of warrant articles number 2 through 8. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. A, warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. And C, no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. Second session of the annual meeting, voting. Voting on warrant articles number 1 through 8 will be conducted by official ballot to be held in conjunction with town meeting voting to be held on Tuesday, the 9th day of March, 2021 at the Hampstead Middle School, 28 School Street, Hampstead, New Hampshire. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. and remain open until 8 p.m. Okay, to review, Article 1 is election of officers. We will be looking to have elections for 3 school district officers. We have a school board member 3-year term, a second school board member 3-year term, and a school district clerk term of 2 years. The filing period for vacancies is January 20th to January 29th at the superintendent's office. Okay, we now move on to Article 2, the bond proposal. The public hearing on the budget will follow the public hearing on the bond. So to make that clear, we will have, this will all be one continuous meeting, especially if you are watching this as it's recorded, but we will have technically separate public hearings for the bond issue and the budget. That being said, the public hearing on the bond is now open. And at this point, I am going to let David Smith begin presenting.
Thank you, Caitlin. I just wanted to see Craig is on the call right now.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Craig, if you are you going to be sharing your
David, I'm sorry, David, can you read Article 2 before you begin?
Yep. Let me just open this up. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yep. No problem. I just had to switch screens. Sorry about that. Article 2, bond issue. Article 2, Hampstead Central School Addition Project. Shall the voters of Hampstead School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,070,000 for the Hampstead Central School Addition Project and authorize the issuance of not more than $9,070,000 of bonds or notes under and in compliance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, to authorize the school board to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver such bonds or notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, to authorize the school board to apply for, obtain, accept, and expend any federal, state, or other aid that may be available for said project, and to authorize the school board to take any and all action necessary in connection therewith, or to pass any other vote relative thereto, and further to raise and appropriate an additional sum of $226,750 for the first year's interest payment on the bond question. 3/5 ballot vote required. So I'll introduce this, and then I'll turn it over and work with Craig from the architects team. Trident Project Management. So we are working with Trident Project Management. Gino Baroni is the owner and managing principal. He's the owner's project manager. This is the owner's project manager. They act as the district's agent and consultant for scheduling, contracting, bidding, negotiating, and overseeing the total project. They manage the outcome to completion. It is client-driven, acts in the district's best interest, and they have over 30 years experience with school projects. Just add on that they do work with neighboring towns, including Pelham and Salem, and Plastow and other areas. So they do have quite the expertise and catalog that provide successful benefits to the town. At this point, I believe Caitlin will turn this over to Craig from Dennis Myers Architects.
Yes, I'm going to stop sharing, and then Craig, you're welcome to go ahead and start your share.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to kick this off real quick. This is David again, then Craig's going to take it over in a couple slides. Again, this is about the renovations and additions. Really, this is about the bond for the additions. Craig, if you can go to the next slide, we're going to go right into the needs. The reason for bringing this warrant article to vote is, we are, I'd say, running out of space in our school. At this past year's budget discussions, we talked about that we would have to take over a lot, I'd say most of the library in order to have an extra classroom that is needed, as our, we do have a growing student population, not only this year, but in the forecasted years. We're driving 20 to 30% above the current student population. And this starts this year and it just continues to go up, and we're going to continue to need more space. It'll end up being, as talked about in the budget discussions, it'll be taking over non-classroom spaces in order to provide classrooms for our students. You'll hear a lot in just a moment here from Craig about keeping it safe environment for our students with the hallways and just safe ways to travel throughout the school in a secured entranceway. And ultimately, we're going to have to find space in where we provide learning for our students, whether that means we need to look at other ways to provide education for our students. But this is a real problem. The board that's here and previous boards did a really good job communicating the need, forecasting it. And now we're here at that point that we've just run out of the space. There's a lot more you'll hear in a moment. So I'll turn it over. And Craig, if you want to start to walk through what we'll get out of this construction.
Okay. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here to present and to work through the school project with Hampstead. I obviously represent Dennis Myers, the architects, and we have done the design work on this conceptual design, as well as the assessment. And so that's where everything really starts, is starting with an assessment. The assessment started with asking these questions. Why is there a project? What needs to be done? So these first few slides just walk through those initial steps of what needs to be done and why. So we looked at safety and security, we looked at code upgrades, we looked at building efficiency, and obviously space efficiency. So the first three really address what is maybe wrong or what needs to be improved with the existing facility. And the fourth, the space deficiencies, deals with what might new components be. So when we look at the safety and security as a bird's eye view, we can see all of these access points around the building, which means we need to secure those points. They need to have access controls, and that filters not only that's from the outside, but that's also on the inside. Again, on safety and security, there are the controlled access points, and primarily at the front entry, because the administration is a half level up or almost a full level up from the street entry. It's just not a great location to have eyes on the street. So we need access controls, which, you know, there are some improvements there, but continue that effort. And then we put under safety healthy environments. In this time of COVID, we all understand that healthy environments need to be maintained, and we get that mainly through ventilation and building efficiency. When we look at building code requirements, that's the second category. There are non-compliant egress components. You can see a picture of the stair to the right. There are more restrooms that are required. Gymnasium and the upper level are the two areas of concern where it's just a bottleneck of, especially between classes, but even when there are larger events. And also fire sprinklers are not installed in Central School at all. So we see that not only as a building code requirement, but that's obviously safety and security as well. The third building deficiency area was weather sealing or sealing the exterior. So making sure the building is energy, not just energy compliant, but is comfortable and becomes a great learning environment. The cafeteria is housed, you know, right next to the gymnasium currently, and the ventilation hood from that would pull air from the gymnasium. Not a real efficient way to manage the building. There are fresh air intakes that need to be improved, and the heating and ventilation throughout. We could, you know, replace pumps and boilers, or pumps to the boilers. The boilers are actually in pretty good condition. They're fairly new. And then there are nighttime setback dampers that could be improved. And all of these things we look at, they need to be done over a larger project rather than, you know, it's more than maintenance can take care of in 1 year. You know, over a period of 10, 15 years, they can pick away at them, but it really takes a bigger project to do them. Then on space deficiencies, we look at the state of New Hampshire educational standards. And there are a number of classrooms that are undersized, and they can be repurposed for different uses. But currently, you know, we're trying to shift students out of those locations so that we can maintain a maximum number of students for preschool at 15, 18 kindergarten students, and in grades 1 through 4, get up to a maximum of 20 to 23 students. And we just need more space. We need more classrooms to do that, to be able to right size it, and then provide the ADA access to those points. So you can see the three deficient sized classrooms, which are in an older portion of the building. Also under space deficiencies, we have site improvements on the exterior. Some of the portables have not been removed, and there are improvements that can be made back there for good drop off and pickup. And additionally, there's a 40-year-old drain field that is nearing its, maybe past its life expectancy, what we would expect it to do, but it also needs to be replaced. So when we looked at the full process, we looked and added on to those prior efforts that have been done. There are facility conditions reports that we put together. We looked at the prior studies to make sure they were consistent. We personally did a facilities assessment with the steering committee, and then we had that steering committee on board, as well as then concluded with conceptual design, which is what you'll see here next. So when we looked at what needed to be added as opposed to just renovated, the additions to the building, it's kind of a requirement to pick up those extra classrooms to add a library and a cafeteria and a music room. And then that frees up those spaces for other uses and makes them much better spaces for the way they're intended to be used. So we realized we need at least 4 classrooms. That's at today's date of the student population, but more is needed in the future, which you'll see how we addressed. And the administration area, controlled lobby needs to be improved upon, and fire sprinklers and restroom repairs need to be under that renovation component. So you'll see this pie shape chart here a little bit later, but just to recognize that learning environments were really our priority in both distribution of work and in dollars spent or dollars put into the building. That's what the school is for primarily. The remainder of the effort is going into the remodeling and code deficiencies, site and infrastructure, academic support, and safety and security. Just to reorient everybody with the school, bird's eye view again, the building consists of essentially 2 building campaigns from the 40s on the far west side to the 60s wing that kind of spans into the, between that and to the south, and then the 80s wing that was added on to the east. So as we looked at the design solution, I mentioned that we were talking about a main entry and administration area. That's the block right up in front. There is the cafeteria that kind of goes back off of the gymnasium, so and stretches along the south and connects the 2 parts of the building. We have the cafeteria, which also functions as a community room. We have a new music room and some restrooms in there, and a library and classrooms. And then just to make sure we got up to what's going to be really needed are 2 additional classrooms that fills in this, what I call a missing tooth of between the 60s and the 40s wing. Another great feature of what happens here is by creating this nice circular pattern, we also pick up a courtyard infill space that is now very safe and secure from the outside when the children aren't able to go out into the outside playground area. There's an interior, large room, large gathering space right there within the school, but outside. In terms of the new construction then, I'm going to start back again at the administration wing. You'll see these a little bit more in detail, but administration is up in this area where we're going to be able to repurpose that area with really no effort. Just build the new administration area, and then that can be, the old administrative area can be used for academic support. That gives us a secured entry, and it also gives great access directly to the nurses station, which is currently on the far end of the building. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along here. Then we have in the purple, these are primarily counseling and special education rooms that create a pathway then to connect a new circulation path to the new additions to the south. So we have, again, the cafeteria off of the gymnasium right back to back with the existing kitchen. So there's no new kitchen. We're just remodeling that, mirroring it over and repurposing. Then we picked up these restrooms that can function for the gymnasium, can function for the cafeteria, can function for any of these new spaces in the back. Right next to that's the music room and the library, which library is currently on the 2nd floor, kind of over here to the north. The library shifts to the back, and we get 2 new classrooms. Again, very little effort, but a new space for the library. On top of that, there are 2 classrooms, and then that missing tooth that I talked about, there would be 2 levels of classrooms back in this area. There's kind of a little courtyard space there currently. And again, that terrace courtyard is right in the center of the school, and we provide great access as you need to leave that space. In the event you need to leave the space, you can leave from these two different directions. New construction on the upper level. Again, these are those two classrooms over top of the library. And what I didn't mention below is there is elevator access. So currently we have an elevator on one end of the school. This would provide ADA access, great access for even community use to the back end of over top of the library. And then this is the second level of the classrooms in that missing tooth area. And because we're always trying to be conscious about cost, we put in as an add alternate extra restrooms on the upper level. Now, hopefully we can fit those in. There is a possibility of squeezing a couple into the existing restroom, but it's marginal at best. So we put this in as an add alternate so that hopefully that can be part of the project, and we have accounted for that in the costs. Now, when we look to the front entry, we have this new main entry. This whole block is the new administrative area, nice and welcoming, covered canopy for drop off and pickup to the front where the school buses primarily use. And then you have an entry space that goes right into administration. So as we kind of dig into that a little further, the entry is now secure. So you come in the secure entry, there's a check-in window directly into administration. Then after you check in either here or you come directly into administration, then you're free to use these doors to access the rest of the school. If there is, it's not a school event or it's an after school event, then this door can be locked. The public can come in through the entry and they have access to the gymnasium and the functions that they need. And you can see the importance here of bringing the nurses station to the front of the school. If a student is sick, you don't want to traipse them through the entire school. They have the ability to be picked up pretty readily right near the administrative area, right at the front entry. And then these are the two counselor and psychologist rooms at the front. And again, academic support, that's where administration is. So we're not adding a lot of square footage. It's almost exactly even, but we've kept that efficiency of two principal and vice principal or assistant principal rooms and a conference space with plenty of room for administration and a mail room and a separate restroom. As we look to the south end of the property, this is where the cafeteria would be built right off of the back playground. You can see that it kind of becomes a conversation with a playground, and it can actually double function as more of a theater space. Then we've got restrooms and music room is this next block, and then the two-story addition of library and classrooms above. As we look at the layout of that back area, again, I mentioned that the kitchen can be remodeled so that it just stays in its original location and doesn't take up the space of the gymnasium. The gymnasium currently is half the time used as a cafeteria, so it seriously limits the amount of time that physical education can utilize the gymnasium. So now they get the full gym back. They have the cafeteria that can double function, can be used for other events. And then we pick up a number of restrooms, the music room, which comes from where the nurses station is. It's right-sized for music, acoustically separated, acoustically treated so that the sounds are as pleasing as we can get out of grade schoolers. which I think is a pleasant sound. And again, we've got this elevator because we have to resolve some of the site within the building. We have an elevator and a half flight of stairs, but then that elevator continues to the upper level, fire or exit stair to the upper level. And then the library. Now the library becomes also a welcoming part of the back entry or the rear entry where drop-off circulation pickup from parents is utilized. And the library can then also function for technology. It can be moved around. We've talked about how the bookcases can be moved around so it can be reconfigured for different uses and different purposes within. This then is the back of the building. You can see where the library and 2 classrooms are above it. And that stretches out over to the east. And then the additional infill 2-level classrooms that would be filled into the back. And then improved circulation. So once there is enough circulation for, or the portables are removed, this back area gets regraded, and we configure that so that it's nice and compatible for easy drop-off and pickup of students, and make as much as we can an island, and just make it a more safe, secure area. And we also get a nice welcoming entry that essentially mirrors what happens at the front of the building. So you can see a summary is that we have a cafeteria and community room. We have a library. We have a music room. There are 6 additional classrooms, and I didn't really show you that well, but one of the other goals was to make sure that the classrooms were clustered. We essentially pick up 5 classrooms per grade in all grades except for if we count preschool. Preschool would remain at 2 classrooms, but we've preserved that because that's important to Hampstead. And then we have the new administrative area and a new main entry. In terms of remodeling, there are additional restrooms. Special education and academic support has picked up an entire new area, additional space that they could really use. The nurses space is much improved and is now in a much better location for the overall school. There are a few structural repairs. Those would be accounted for throughout the building. And then fire sprinklers would be added throughout the building, not just the existing facility, or not just the new like we have to, but it would be spread through the existing school as well. So again, here's that pie sheet with the distribution of work, all of the learning environments, majority of the effort at 45%. The remodeling and code deficiencies is about 20%. And then the other 3 pieces, site and infrastructure, academic support, and safety security are kind of an even right around 10% of the effort. So what we've gathered from this is that we get a long-term solution, and the needs have been there. We've been able to see that the needs needed to be geared this way, and this is a long-term solution that works for many years into the future. And that was really important as we work through this whole solution. This allows for the public to use the facilities. We have a safe and secure area, not just at the main entry, but at the drop-off and pickup area in the rear. We have energy efficiency, which is a big savings on dollars for operating costs. And we have savings in just remodeling and shifting and reuse of different areas, not building all of the areas, but being able to reuse some of the existing, just repurposing them. We've added restrooms, cafeteria, a library, a music room. And this is not just for the school, but this is for community use as well. And again, we have those clustered classrooms, picking up 6 additional and improved circulation throughout the school, and an additional elevator. And finally, we have the code compliant and fire suppression throughout. So that, I believe, completes my portion of it. David, did you want to go through this right now?
Yeah, I just want to go through just to reiterate the cost. So if you can go to the next slide. So just to reiterate what we said at the beginning when we read off the bond and just give you the community a little bit more detail. So this is, warrant article for Article 2 for $9.07 million. We are looking at a 10-year bond on this, and through working with Jeff Dowd and others, we've been able to work with a bond agent and have been told we'll get 1.5% or less. This is an all-time low for the community. In the past, it's been upwards of the 3%, so this is half of what we've been used to. So there's definitely a savings on this piece, which is definitely appreciated in the trying times that we're in. What this comes out to be is about 75 cents increase to the tax rate, or for a $400,000 home, you're looking at no more than $25 a month. We would be able to start commencement of this in the fall with if it was so voted by the community. So just thank you all for listening and hearing the information that's been provided. And thank you, Craig, for walking through this.
Absolutely.
And then I guess we'll turn it back over to you, Caitlin. Yeah, I'm mute.
Okay, one last piece for the bond item that we did want to put forward this evening is this chart gives an idea of what the tax impact will be as we go through this project. As David mentioned, this is a 10-year bond. So this chart breaks it down into the impact on a $100,000 home, $200,000 home, and a $400,000 home. As you can see at the bottom, we talk about future year averages. If anyone is familiar with this, over the years, we've showed that your rate will change a little bit over the years. The impact is not exactly the same every year of the 10 years of the bond, but this gives you an average here. So this is where the tax impact comes into play. As David mentioned, if you look at the fall 2022, what he was referencing was the $400,000 home. If you look at the monthly impact, it's just over $25. And as you look at the different, excuse me, housing prices, you can see the different impact as we move along there. Okay, so at this point in the public hearing, we are going to open the floor to questions on this particular item. So we are looking, if anyone has questions about the bond article, we can take questions on that. So for anyone who has joined via the webinar, you can use the raise hand function to ask a question or to provide a comment. If you are listening and have joined by call-in and you have a question or a comment, please, you're going to raise your hand by pressing *9. So I do want to give us a couple of minutes here so that if anyone does have questions or comments from the public, you're given some time to virtually raise your hand. I will remind you, you must be a Hampstead resident in order to ask a question or comment on this. So you will be asked to state your name and your address as we would at a in-person public hearing. I'm just going to wait on our tech crew
Caitlin,
to kind of, yes.
we have one person with their hand raised.
Okay. Mike, if you want to go ahead and activate them to speak, I don't know. Oh, give them permission, sorry.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Lee Campos. I just wanted to ask a question in regards to, in the event that this doesn't pass, since we need this year and we're kind of out of space, what is, what happens if it doesn't pass? Like, what's the next thing that we do for space? I assume there's got to be some kind of consequence to that.
Yep, so I'm going to speak to it from what I know real quick, and then I'm going to let David and if any administrators would like to speak to this, we will certainly give them the opportunity. From my understanding, we will start taking over the library first. And so there will be classroom space put into the library. David or Megan, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all additionally.
Yeah, agreed. The first place we're going to look at is the library, as it's been discussed before. After that, I'm fearful of the different places it could be, whether it's part of the gymnasium, whether it's looking at special education space and moving kids out of district. I mean, there's options that we'd have to evaluate and really work with the administration to see what's in the best interest of Hampstead for I'd say, the lowest cost. I think no matter what it's going to cost us, whether we're known as the school district that's taking over libraries or putting kids in other districts or something, but that's where we'd first have to look at. Again, I don't know, the administration has discussed different options as well. So I don't know if Dr. Metzler or anybody else would have input to this.
I'm going to give them a minute in case we've got anyone else who wants to weigh in. I mean, I think, David, you pretty much said it. We're just going to have to look at every single available space.
If I could just add, Caitlin, we always, every year we work with NASDAQ to understand, what that population looks like. And, this is really the first year that we're approaching that 100 students per grade level. And as we get into, the middle of this decade and further, we're looking at close to, if not over 100 students per grade for almost every grade, including, kindergarten all the way through 4th. So this problem's not going away. And, Mr. Collins had brought up earlier this year that NASDAQ had forecasted us to be around that 410 students or so. And we ended up being, before the, pandemic hit and, some kids didn't come because kindergarten, they decided not to bring them to school. But we would have been closer to 450, 460 students. So we're already over the forecast this year. So, I think that's just going to be exponential in the coming years and keep growing as what we've seen. Hopefully that answers your question. It's no good answer for right now. That's why we got to pass this vote.
Madam Chair,
Okay. Yes.
would you like to ask Ms. Campos if she's willing to state her address for the record?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Campos, can you state your address for the record, please?
No, thanks though. I live on the west side of Hampstead though.
Melissa, what do we need for the record?
I'll add that she's on the west side of Hampstead. I don't know what else we really require.
Okay. 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 I guess we'll go with that for now. Mr. Flynn, do we have anyone else?
No other hand raises.
Okay. Okay, if we have no other questions or comments on this item, I am going to close the hearing on the bond. Just for everyone listening, don't go anywhere. We're still continuing to go, but that closes the public hearing on the bond article. We will now move on to the public. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have looked through there. I'm now going to open the hearing on the budget. Article 3, operating budget. Shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $30,661,347. Excuse me, hold on. I'm sorry. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $30,652,326, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Hampstead School District or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, warrant Article 3 operating budget does not include appropriations proposed by any other warrant articles. Majority vote required. So looking at the overviews of our budget presentation, we'll be looking at budget drivers and projected enrollments, budget changes by department, highlights of increases and decreases, staffing, overall budget proposal, and our default budget. Okay, to start off, talking about some key budget drivers. We are looking at special education tuition, transportation, and related services have increased due to changing student needs. We do have curriculum materials and program cycling. We have previously deferred facilities projects at both schools, and we have budgeting for projected enrollment. So looking at the projected enrollment that we've used for budgeting, looking at central school, this is pre-K through 4. We have projected enrollment of 505 students. This is an increase of 60 students. Middle school, so this is grades 5 through 8. We have projected enrollment of 358 students. This is a decrease of 6 students. For Pinkerton, which is grades 9 through 12, we have projected enrollment of 434 students, which is a change, an increase of 1 student. Total district-wide enrollment for the school year 2021 to 2022 is 1,297, which is an increase of 55 students. As a note, when we look at Pinkerton, as will be discussed periodically through this, we do tuition our Pinkerton students. Next year's Pinkerton Academy tuition is an increase of 3.54% to a student amount of $13,698. Okay, to look at the central school and the budget changes that we're looking at there, the major increases for central school would be a new math program curriculum that is $50,000. We have furniture and equipment of $6,500. Major decreases from last year would be other textbooks that we purchased last year and do not need to purchase this year. That's $8,800. We had PE supplies last year of $2,600, and we are down $10,000 for library new equipment. So the current budget in this year for central school is $194,110. The proposed budget is $231,450 for a change increase of $37,340. I will point out as we're going through this, and I believe this is on a subsequent slide, when we look at these new, where it says new math programs, you'll see something similar. Our curriculum cycles through, and we do try, the district tries to stagger curriculum updates and textbook updates so that we're not having multiple programs in one year. Sometimes it does happen that we'll have 2 programs at once, but we do try to cycle them through. So next up is the middle school budget and the changes there. The major increases for the middle school, we are in need of math textbooks. That cost will be $110,000. We have social studies textbooks at $50,000, library furniture and equipment at $15,000, and musical instruments being updated at $8,600. We do have decreases of about $2,200 for sports equipment from last year. So the current budget at middle school would be $181,557. We have a proposed budget of $362,769 for a change, an increase of $181,212. And as I mentioned, a very large percentage amount of that is for math and social studies textbooks, which we do have to update periodically. That is necessary for the district. Okay, next up is curriculum budget changes. We don't have a huge change here. We do have one decrease. We had professional development books that did not need to be purchased this year that were purchased last year. So we have a decrease there of $1,500. So the current budget for curriculum is $33,800. The proposed budget is $32,300. And as I mentioned, it's a change decrease of $1,500. Okay, next up is technology. For our technology budget drivers, the major increase there really relates to our establishing our new single district SAU. We are moving buildings and we will have some associated technology costs with that. So the current budget for technology is $332,332. The proposed budget would be $349,941 for a change of $17,609. The next department we're going to look at is special education. So the major increases we're seeing for special education is professional services. We have an increase of $124,686. We have a private school tuition increase of $286,064. A change in info access fees, so that's an increase of $3,500. And then a decrease is to Pinkerton Academy tuition for special education. We're seeing a decrease there of $140,057. So for this year, the current budget for special education is $3,487,130. The proposed budget is $3,762,931 for a change of increase of $275,801. Next, we have facilities. So our increases that we're looking at for facilities are plumbing and heating updates at $4,000, custodial supplies at $4,500, building improvements at $30,000, and replacement equipment at $7,500. So our current facilities budget for this year is $989,449. We have a proposed budget of $1,035,449 for a change of $46,000. Okay, next we want to look at staffing. Our building staffing levels will remain generally unchanged. We may have reassignments that occur based on our final enrollment numbers. We do have a 3% increase for non-union staff. All union staff costs are based on the collective bargaining agreements, which were voted on last year's ballot for the next few years. This does not include any change to salary or benefits for Hsdsb members. We do have a warrant article for their collective bargaining agreement that's on the warrant this year that will be discussed a little later tonight. So our overall budget proposal is $30,661,347. The difference between the proposed budget and the budget for this year is $1,377,387. This represents a 4.7% increase year over year. So this slide is to show visually where the costs across our budget come from and where most of them, most of the money goes. A lot of these, as we've talked about in previous school board meetings, are really not something that we have discretion over. They are prescribed for salaries, benefits, tuition, all of those types of things. We really do not have discretion to change all that much. So as you can see, salaries, benefits, and tuition are really our largest pieces of the pie. And the rest is kind of just dispersed with a smaller amount of the budget. Okay, this slide breaks down what our budgets have looked like year over year since 2011. I do want to point out that the actual budgets from fiscal years 2011, 2012 through 2020 to 2021 include all warrant articles. For example, if there was a contribution to capital reserve, that is in there. And the proposed budget for next year represents the operating budget alone. So you'll see here our different changes throughout the last 10 years or so. So this is here for reference. Okay, this side is for the default budget. So should the proposed budget be defeated, the default budget would be $30,652,326. It's a difference of about $9,000 between the proposed budget and the default budget. Okay. At this point, we are again going to open the floor to the public for comments or questions. Again, same process as what we did for the bond. If you have joined the webinar, you can use the raise hand function to ask a question or to give a comment. If you have joined by call-in, you're going to virtually raise your hand by pressing *9. I did get an update, and I do have to let everyone know that you are required by law to give an address when you speak. That was my mistake. I didn't realize we needed that as prescribed by law. So you do need to give your address. This is so that later on we can confirm that you are a resident of the town. So that is the reasoning for that. Residents do have to say their address. So I wanted to clear that up. I'm going to give everyone a couple of moments here so that
Caitlin, if you don't mind, I'd like to remind everyone that there is a supplement to the public hearing budget, and that can be found. We have a link from the district's main page, hsdschools.net, which is the 2021 public hearing deliberative election link that will take you directly to the folder for the 21 public hearing deliberative session and election materials. And if you click on that and continue to click through, you'll find a public hearing financial packet, which contains a little bit more detailed information on the budget, some of the increases, some of the decreases, a review of the budget by object code, by area of change, greatest to least, the proposed budget by function and object code, as well as a breakdown of the default budget by the MSDS form, which is typically what we use to file with the state. There is the proposed revenue budget as well as definition of what the default budget, the statute that we're following for the default budget is included in that package as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, as I said, I'm just going to give everybody a minute here.
Caitlin, there is a question that was asked in the question and answer section of the.
David, unfortunately, they have to be
Yep.
speaking.
Yep, I was going to just raise it to the same person, Lee Campos, if she'd like to ask the question.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we do have to, I know we're doing this virtually, which is different than in years past, but we have some prescribed rules by law that we have to go by. And
Caitlin, we have one hand raised. I'll allow to talk.
okay,
Hey, so my question, so this is.
sorry, can you,
Yep, and I'm happy to confirm my address privately, so you guys can check, but I don't want to state it in the middle of a meeting. That's public record.
okay, can you hold on a minute, Lee, because we're going to have to see if that's possible. Unfortunately, the issue with this is the way that,
and that's fine. I mean,
I apologize. It's just what we have to go by for the state. If you do feel more comfortable with it and you want to submit it via email, I can try to get back to you. Obviously, it's nice to have it in a public hearing so that if others have the same question, but. Okay. Mr. Flynn, do we have,
No other hands have been raised.
okay, I'm just going to give this another minute just to give people a chance. Okay, seeing no other questions at this point, I am going to close the public hearing on the budget. You're now moving on to part 4, the proposed union contracts. Mr. Sweeney, are you ready to speak to this slide?
Yep, I'm going to read that slide.
Okay, go ahead.
Article 5 is the Hsdsb contract negotiations that we did a little while ago. If you don't know what HSPA stands for, it's Hampstead Support Personnel Association. Shall the Hampstead School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Hampstead School, everybody's picture, Hampstead School Board and the Hampstead Support Personnel Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over the amount paid in the prior fiscal year. The 2021 to 2022 increase would be 24,936. The 2022, 2023, 24,574. 2023, 2024, 19,830, and 2024, 2025, 19,830. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $24,936 for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and fringe benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Majority vote required. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Welcome.
Okay, we will move on to additional warrant articles. These are going to seem a little bit out of order since we just did 5. We're now going back to 4 because we were talking about contracts first. So Article 4, I am going to again ask David Smith to read this slide, and then we're going to be letting our construction team and architect speak to this. David, are you ready? Oh, you're there. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Caleb. Article 4, HDS 60s wing renovation. Shall the voters of Hampstead School District raise and appropriate the sum of $1,660,000 for the purpose of Hampstead Central School's 60s wing renovation project, and to authorize the withdrawal of $1,160,000 from the school renovation reconstruction capital improvement capital reserve fund, which is a special revenue fund created for this purpose, and up to $500,000 from the June 30th, 2021 unassigned fund balance surplus in excess of $150,000 available for transfer on July 1st, 2021. The actual total project's cost is $2.095 million, to be funded as follows: $1.16 million from the capital reserve fund, $500,000 from surplus, $245,000 budgeted in the school year 21-22, and $190,000 to be encumbered from the 2020-21 budget. With respect to surplus, the first $150,000 will be returned to taxpayers. The next $500,000 in surplus will be used to fund the warrant article. Majority vote required. Go ahead and read this. Just make sure, Caitlin, you're good with me reading this one?
Sure, if you want to read it, you are welcome to.
So this one, I believe, so thank you, Mr. Dowd, on some of this language. I think this helps to answer some questions. The actual, total project cost is $2.095 million, with funding sources identified as was in the warrant: $1.16 million from the capital reserve fund, $500,000 from surplus. That does mean that the first $150,000 from surplus will be returned to taxpayers. The next $500,000 will be used to fund this project. Then we'll have $245,000 budgeted from next year's school budget, school year 21-22, as well as taking $190,000 to be encumbered from this year's 2020-21 budget. Per the DRA, the actual raise and appropriate amount, which must be reflected in this article, is $1.660000. By utilizing the capital reserve funds and surplus, the $1,660,000 appropriation is not raised through additional taxation. For full transparency to the voter, we are identifying the total cost of the project along with all funding sources. I don't know, anything else there?
Whoops, sorry.
Anything else there? I didn't know.
No.
All right, got it. I didn't
No.
know if we get questions on this one and then move on. Thank you.
Yep. So is Craig going to speak to this?
Yes, I will speak to the next portion.
Okay. Okay, I am going to stop my share, Craig, and you're good to go.
Okay. Sorry, I had these back to back. So we are looking now at a portion of the building that has come up as deficient, every year that we've looked at it, and it's something that I'll try and give a little different flair to it, but we've been over it a number of times. So again, we looked at deficiencies, and this is that rear 60s portion of the building that that needs the repairs done to it. And in the 60s, they didn't pay a lot of attention to the way they built things. They built them well, as in to stand up well, but energy efficiency was not something that they put a lot of attention to. They were just trying to get something built and get kids in the schools. We find this a lot. So the 60s wing is built of uninsulated masonry walls. So again, really strong, but there's no R value to it. If I give an R value to the masonry walls, that's an R 1.2. Our code minimum is an R20. You would never buy a house that has an R 1.2 in it. You may as well just hang a sheet up. But that's what it's rated at. that affects both heating and cooling. So really hot in the when we get closer to summer and into the hot falls, but in the wintertime, it's freezing cold. In addition to that, the roof is something that needs to be replaced. It needs to be insulated as well so that we can get the insulation value up on it. The windows are completely inefficient as well. You can see the air leaking through them. You can see it in the wintertime by the amount of ice that builds up on the inside of it. Then in addition to that, on the side of the building, these are the fresh air intakes for all of the mechanical equipment. This happens to be where the cars park and wait and drop off their kids. So we're just pulling all those fumes right into the building. So it's a very unhealthy situation and not a great learning environment all around. So the heating and ventilation, it's expensive to heat and cool. It does need to be cooled with wall or with window units that are never efficient. There is a ventilation system in there. It was turned off for years because it's so loud that the teachers couldn't teach. And with our new COVID sensibilities, the ventilation system is on now, and it's just not a great scenario. And again, it's a very poor and unhealthy learning environment. So what we're talking about is the rear portion of the building. We have an exterior envelope that needs to be replaced. It's roof and then also the side walls. So walls in terms of insulation and windows. And then that is also a new finish to the exterior. There would be some disruption to the interior. So interior gets painted and the windows get trimmed out as well. When we look at what's existing, this upper picture, that's just masonry and it's painted really nice. Maintenance crew does a great job on site, but the paint doesn't have any insulation value. So we want to put a new insulated exterior on there with brick, which keeps it in character with the existing school building. These are the new windows. We wouldn't band them. We would minimize the windows a little bit. We're going to keep the same amount of natural light by keeping them tall, but doing a narrower version. And again, then we have these metal panels that have a continuous insulation behind them. It'd be the new roof and then a new heating and ventilation system. In terms of the components that make up those repairs, if you look at this section of masonry, that would be what would be your existing exterior wall. We put a good air and vapor barrier over top of that to help with keeping any moisture issues going in and through the wall, and put rigid exterior insulation to the outside, and then our brick veneer outside of that. On the top, it would be brick. The lower would be more of a smooth-faced CMU, thinking of very durable materials to take care of that. The windows would be new double pane, thermally broken, very well insulated windows. And then on the roof, that's where we would put the ventilation system. We would take away any of the fresh air ventilation that occurs on the exterior of the building and bring it all from the roof so we can bring it from a cleaner location. And it would tie into the existing boilers still. So we're not adding a new heating system to help this building. We're just doing it in a more efficient manner. And those would have energy recovery ventilators on them as well. So the air that we're mixing, and we're not preheating it or pre-cooling it, as the case may be, it gets preheated, pre-cooled with the interior, with the inside air, and keeps a nice, healthy environment. So the improvements to the 60s wing is we get a new exterior finish and insulated walls. Goes from an R1 to an R25, continuous insulation. So that just means that there's no thermal bridging that occurs. So whenever you see CI, that's a really good insulated perimeter or structure. There's the insulated roof and roof replacement, and we would also improve the insulation value up there from an R18 is kind of where we think it is with the degradation of the insulation that's been on there for a long time, and get it up to an R30. We may be able to get it higher than that, but an R30 is where we're proposing. The new windows are thermally broken. It's a U value of 0.28. We usually do those in a custom home, but we can get those almost the same cost today now. Do a really good window so that we're taking care of the entire envelope. Then we put the fresh air, and we have the roof ventilators on the roof. The heating and ventilation then is very inexpensive for heating and cooling. He's taking care of it on the envelope. And we have this quiet ventilation system that's pulling from the roof now rather than the walls. And this all creates a very healthy learning environment on the inside of the building. And just another note is, as we were designing this, we had to look at it in conjunction with the larger project. The larger project, whether it goes or not, this project will work. It's more efficient to do it all at once, but we had to design it in a way that if one or the other did not go, then this piece could be done, because it's just an area that really needs to be dealt with. So I'm going to turn this back over to David to complete his portion of this.
Next slide. Yeah. Craig, you can go to the next slide, Craig.
Can you see that one?
Yep. Do you have one more slide behind this?
I do not.
There we go. Yep, that one right there. All right. So before I get into this, I just want to call out that last night I was at the selectmen's meeting and I did make a misstatement on behalf of the board. I want to correct that in front of everyone, that I had spoken that it was a unanimous vote to bring this article to the voters. It was not. It was a 3/5 majority that brought this to the voters. So I apologize for my misstatement last night at the selectmen's meeting. But onto the 60s wing renovation, just as we've heard what it is. We've heard that it's 2.095 million. Again, just want to call out that we are utilizing our capital reserve, and the additional funds we are looking at from this year as well as next year's budgets. And we do believe that we'll be able to reduce this for the voters, for the community. There's opportunities there that we're going to be looking into if this passes, which are grants, energy efficiency, as well as if this was to pass with warrant article number 2, there are contingencies that would be reduced by doing these together. So there is opportunity here for the voters, for the community, when we talk about saving money, to be smart with how we're being fiscally conservative. There is ways that we can take advantage of that with a yes vote from the voters. And that's what I got, Caitlin.
Okay, thank you both.
And I'll stop sharing now.
Okay, thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let me get my share back up. Okay, so that concludes Article 4 presentation. So now we move to Article 6, authorization for special meeting on cost items. Shall the Hampstead School District, if Article 5 is defeated, authorize the Hampstead School Board to call a special meeting at its option to address the Article 5 cost item only? Majority vote required. Without this article, the district would have to petition the Superior Court for a special school district meeting. This saves the district the expense of attorney fees and court costs. So since we went out of order a little bit, I also need to mention this piece up here should say Article 6. I apologize. So Article 6 comes into play if Article 5, which is the Hsdsb collective bargaining agreement, if that item fails, that is when Article 6 comes into play. So I just want to clarify that this is one of those kind of odd ones that I like to direct back to what it's referring to. Okay, our next item is Article 7, the Capital Reserve. Before I read this, I do want to kind of do a little bit of clarification, which is written in the article, but we had a discussion as a board about how to approach a capital reserve contribution this year. If you recall from Article 4, the 60s wing renovation that we just went through, the funding for that does ask for a capital reserve contribution in Article 4. So what the board opted to put forward, and what I will read in its entirety, is that if Article 4 fails, Article 7 should be considered. So I'm going to read the article and we can touch on it if anyone else would like to. Should Article 4 fail, shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate up to $400,000 to be placed in the school renovation, reconstruction, and capital improvement capital reserve fund established in 2006, with such amount to be transferred from the June 30th, 2021 unassigned fund balance surplus in excess of $150,000 available for transfer on July 1, 2021. If Article 4 passes, this article is null and void and shall not take effect. Majority vote required. The first $150,000 of surplus will be returned to the taxpayers. The next $100,000 to $400,000 of the surplus will be placed in the capital reserve fund. Any additional surplus will be returned to the taxpayers. The funds from this article come from the 2020-2021 school budget surplus, not from additional taxes. So we did want to put this slide in to kind of go over what I mentioned. So we have two articles here. Article 7 for capital reserve and Article 4 for the Central School 60s wing. Article 4 requests the voters to allow the use of $500,000 from the current year 2020-2021 surplus to fund part of the 60s wing project. This request for funding is similar to what we do annually for our capital reserve contribution request. For example, last year's ballot asked the voters to contribute $400,000 to the capital reserve fund for exactly the purpose that we put forward this evening on the Article 4 60s wing renovation. So it will be used in Article 4. The exception to that is that we are asking for this capital reserve contribution to be used directly to fund the 60s wing project. Article 7, which is just the straight capital reserve request that voters allow the use of up to $400,000 from the, use of $400,000 from the current year 2020-2021 surplus to fund our capital reserve for future use. Again, we just want to reiterate to make this clear, this is only if Article 4 fails. So we're using a strategy of a one or the other approach. Because should Article 4 fail, we know we have the 60s wing project as well as others that continue to need to be done. So continuing to build up capital reserve, we get closer to being able to fund that full project. Okay, our last article, Article 8, is the acceptance of reports. Shall the Hampstead School District accept the reports of agents, auditors, and committees as written in the 2020 annual report? This is a majority vote required. Okay, deliberative session. Right now, we have starting at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, Hampstead Middle School, 28 School Street, Hampstead, New Hampshire. You will note that this slide says subject to change. The reason that is there, as we discussed at our special meeting last week, there are still some unknowns with this. There are still decisions that are being made on the state level about options for deliberative sessions. Right now, The information we are putting forward is that an in-person meeting, but no final decision has been made on that. Once it is, and especially should there be any changes to the way this would normally work in a regular year, we will absolutely ensure that lots of information is getting out, which would include mailers to every registered voter's home. Okay, at this point, we do have to meet in a special board meeting to consider any actions based on the public hearing regarding the budget and each of the articles, and additionally to vote on our recommendations that will show on the ballot. So at this point, I am going to adjourn the public hearing meeting. And I'm going to ask board members, do we want to take a quick break, or would you prefer to just press on and get this finished up?
Okay to press on, Galen, if the board is.
Keep on going.
Okay, that's fine. It'll be quick. Hold on one second. Okay. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We are going to go immediately into a special board meeting to do our items that we need to do on the warrant articles. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We've adjourned. Now we're in a special board meeting. Welcome, everyone. So what we need to do here, sorry, I need to switch over now. Please excuse me, everybody, for the delay here. This just, I have too many screens open. Okay. So as a reminder for anybody watching, for board members, on the ballot each year, there is a piece that shows the recommendations of the board. So we will now go through each warrant article, and I will ask for a vote, a motion to recommend, so that can appear on the ballot. Melissa, can I ask you a question real quick? I should have this memorized and I don't.
Yes.
We still need to do like a motion, a second, and then vote, correct?
Yes, I think we do need to do that. So we should, typically what we've done in the past is that the board would make a motion in the affirmative, somebody would second it, and then we would vote, or the board would vote whether or not they want to recommend or not. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep, no, that's perfect. Okay, so in case anyone's wondering why we don't do that for Article 1, Article 1 is election of officers. We don't need to recommend that. So I would be looking for a motion to recommend Article 2, the bond issue, Hampstead Central School addition project.
Moved.
Megan, and do we have a second?
Second,
Okay. Melissa, will you please call the roll vote?
Ms. Malcolm,
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
No.
Mrs. Yusenka.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving along. Can I have a motion to recommend Article 3, operating budget?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm.
Okay. Melissa, will you please call the roll? Vote.
Ms. Malcolm,
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell,
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, you're muted. Could you unmute to vote?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna keep going. Can I have a motion to recommend Article 4, Hampstead Central School 60s Wing Renovation Project?
Move.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Melissa, will you please call the vote?
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
No.
Mrs. Yusenka?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll keep going. Can I have a motion to recommend Article 5, Collective Bargaining Agreement, Hampstead Support Personnel Association?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Melissa, will you please call the vote?
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 6, sorry. Can I have a motion to recommend Article 6, authorization for special meetings on cost items?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Melissa, please call the vote.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next, can I have a motion for Article 7, Capital Reserve Fund?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney.
Okay, Melissa. Yep, can you please call the vote?
Yes, I can. Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka?
No.
Okay, last item, can I have a motion to recommend Article 8, General Acceptance of Reports, please?
Second.
Okay, Melissa, please call the vote.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unless anybody has anything else they think we've missed. I do want to mention before we adjourn that board members, you have from Melissa in your email an electronic signature document that needs to be signed tonight. That has to do with moving our warrant forward, and because of date issues, you need to sign that tonight. So I'm going to have Melissa tell me if you haven't, and if I have to call you at 11 o'clock tonight, I'm going to call you and wake you up and make you sign it. So once we jump off here, the easiest thing to do is just go get that signed. So we don't have to have Melissa chasing after any of us, and then that means me chasing after people. Other than that, I believe we are done and adjourned for the night. And next up should be our January 26th, I think that's the right date, regular board meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.